Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella, Herrera. Maricella, we have a big celebration.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you. So for our listeners, we first off want to just say thank you to all of you. This is our 300th episode. We've been releasing the Ellevate podcast every week for years now. Maricella and I have been in it together, in it to win it, but we've been in it with you. We couldn't do this if it weren't for the support of our listeners who rate us, review us, share us on social media and with their friends, send us amazing notes of just validation and support. When we were in person, would come up to us at events and say, I know your voice. It's definitely been a journey and an incredibly rewarding one. We started the podcast 300 episodes ago to tell the stories of women changing the face of business. These individuals may be sitting next to you in the workplace, someone you aspire to be, someone whose story you didn't know you needed to hear. But the unifying fact here is the diversity of thought, of experiences, of stories, of careers, because what we want to show is there's no one way to be successful in business. There's no one way to find your purpose, to find fulfillment, to find a career you love, to leave a lasting impact on this world. We're all doing it in many ways every single day. So we want to inspire you with the stories we share on the Ellevate podcast so we can continue amplifying the amazing women around us and the world that we're creating together.
It's so exciting. I mean, I can't believe we are on our 300th episode. This just means we've talked a lot. Representation matters. We've shown you how many women from many different paths and many different careers and many different backgrounds have forged their trajectory. And if it's inspired one of you or many of you, if it's made you feel less alone, that's what we wanted. We want you to know the people who you don't even know you should know. And that's what we're doing here. We're really bringing them for us to meet them, for you to meet them, to use them a little bit as therapy every now and then, but really just to build this community of wonderful change makers. I can't believe it's been 300.
I know. Do you have a favorite?
That's a very hard one. Because I go really back. I was going to say Heidi Hackmer, for example. That's one of the first podcasts we did, and she was fantastic. Nicola Nice, who Pomps and Whimsy Gin, who I got to interview, which was fun. I always do enjoy when I get the chance to get a chatting with our guests. Miriam Grubman, of course, like she's my buddy, my friend, and she's been on the podcast like 3 times, and I always love nerding out with her.
Yeah.
You?
I don't know. I asked you the question, and then I realized I don't know how to answer it myself. We've just had so many fantastic stories and episodes. I'd say one of my favorite is when we taped Raise Her Voice, which was Ellevate's take on storytelling, on that moth podcast, if you will, of sharing the stories from our community, which is something we do every week on the Ellevate podcast. But this particular episode, which came out, I want to say at the end of 2019.
Yeah, right before the world ended.
Yeah, exactly. I remember where we taped it and everything. But we had women from around the world who were sharing their specific stories. And that it really opened my eyes to a global narrative around women and what we face every day in the workplace and in our lives, but also the resilience, the grit, the just, sheer inspiration that we all are. And I would say every episode of the Ellevate podcast leaves me with some lasting impact. If it's new knowledge, new inspiration, feeling a little bit less alone, feeling more inspired. We are just so proud of all of these amazing change makers in the world. And we encourage you to keep up that impact, keep going, because we all need you as we can cheer you on and support one another.
And thank you for listening. If you've been following along, I know we talk a lot about our personal lives too. So you know about my running, you know about Kristy's kids. Um, but we'd love to hear from you. What else do you want to hear about? What else can we bring to you that will make this a valuable spend of your time? I mean, we all have limited time in the day. And if you choose to spend 30 minutes with us every week, that's incredible. We can't thank you enough.
Yep. Yes. So thank you. Here's to you on our 300th episode. We're dedicating it to all of you. Today, we have a spectacular guest, Kailee Scales. She's the CEO of Pencils of Promise, a nonprofit that creates school programs and global communities around the common goal of education for all. Kailee's story is one of inspiration, advocacy, and impact. It's one you cannot miss. So enjoy the ride with Kailee Scales, and we'll see you back here at the end of the interview. Kailee, thank you so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
So let's get started learning a little bit more about you. Could you share a bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
My story is it probably took a couple of different turns in the very beginning, and then just had this trajectory ever since. I grew up in Queens, and I really spent a lot of my childhood as I was recently walking past memory lane or walking down memory lane. I started reflecting on my childhood and some of the things that happened in my childhood that made me who I am today. And it was really illuminating. If I suggest people do that, it just kind of brings things full circle in many cases. And for me, growing up in Queens, I grew up in a pretty interesting family where my father from Puerto Rico emanated here. Well, not really emanated since it's a part of the United States, but came here at a pretty pivotal age in his life, and started over. Him and his brother and his mother essentially started over from living in a very wealthy life with his father, and she pretty much escaped the situation of unhappiness and dysfunction in order to start fresh, which again was part of, I think, my journey towards really being thoughtful in the way that I made choices in my life. And so she brought her children here to New York, and they lived in poverty. They lived in Spanish Harlem, and my father really had to carve a pathway for himself and for his future family. My father met my mother in Queens. She was firmly middle class. She was the daughter of a business owner. And they built a family together. My father became pretty successful in his career, loved his career, engaged me in his career at a very young age. And they really taught me some very valuable lessons about the way to carve a path for yourself and the way to remove barriers, the way my father was able to create his life with limited opportunity, in many cases no opportunity. The only one of his siblings to do so was always in the forefront of my mind, and always very, very inspiring to me. So in my childhood, my parents made sure that I understood where I came from. I understood where they came from. I understood obstacles in life. I understood obstacles that others had that maybe we didn't, because of the way that my parents were able to navigate these obstacles. And not everyone, they made it clear to me that not everyone was able to do that. And I remember volunteering so much as a young person. I just, some of my earliest memories were in places where my parents placed me, like serving meals to people in our church, or playing with children who were foster children because they were in abusive backgrounds, and just working in elder care, and just really being a part of my community growing up, and that just being a part of who I became and who I always was. And so when it came time for me to make choices about my life, I think all of those things really played a very big role in the choices that I made. Initially, I thought I studied vocal performance. So I'm a trained classical singer, and I thought I was going to be a famous pop star. Still may hold on to that dream. But somehow this pool of community involvement really like caught me. And very early, probably when I was 20, while I was doing things like auditioning and things like that, I also had this opportunity to help a man who was running for Congress in Brooklyn. And he asked me to just kind of stop everything that I was doing and get behind him in his campaign, which was very community based, in order to help him and be his fundraiser. And I was like, first of all, I'm a singer, you know this, but maybe. And he really started talking to me about what that entailed and what not just the work entailed, but what it meant to have a meaningful impact in your community that had a ripple effect to the lives of others, and how that could transform or evolve into other areas and other spaces where I could have impact. And he said that he saw in me some ability to connect people and to really be passionate about something that would inspire others to be passionate as well, and to tap into their ability to transform their communities, and then eventually their world. And so, I listened and I took that opportunity, and that really evolved into a fuller career of consistent work around multiple progressive issues. Really, I've worked in health equity, I've worked in environmental inequity, I've worked in education, I've worked in social justice, I've worked all around the world in 14 different countries. I've worked for the Queen of Sweden, and it's just been this real incredible journey that I am so grateful for every single day, because it's really been the fulfillment of everything that I think I was supposed to be. This person who helped remove barriers for others, this person who is able to bring creativity into the work that I do every single day, and a person who feels like I really have a role in transforming the way the world works, and really dismantling the things that don't and rebuilding the things that do. And it has really been the most fulfilling career path that I could ever possibly imagine. And again, I'm grateful for it every single day. So
Thank you so much for sharing your story. So your career has taken some twists and turns, but with an overarching mission for impact and creating change. When I see career paths like this that kind of go through different causes or different organizations, I'm always interested in what are the threads that weave them together, or the people that kind of connect one to the next. And how much has your network impacted it? And like, what was kind of the threads you followed that led you from one, organization to the next, that really is just creating greater impact and amplifying the work that you do?
I felt that each experience that I had prepared me in a different way for the next experience. Um, my commitment in my career is lifelong. My commitment, it was always to transformation of the world and helping to solve the world's most complex problems. And so, and I knew that there was a throughway of inequity in almost every case. And I knew that it extended past my community and past my state and past my country, and it encompassed the world. And I knew that my network and everyone that I came across in each of those experiences led me, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, similar to that very first experience that I described, to what came next. And I knew that all of it was going to inspire others, and all of it was going to inspire me to keep attempting to bring change and to bring a solution to the planet and to make it better.
And talk to me about Pencils of Promise. Share with our community a little bit about what you're working on now.
Pencils of Promise is just this incredible organization. And again, it really helps, or it really is, again, the throughway to my experience of working in organizations that help to amplify the needs and help to remove the barriers for the most marginalized among us on this planet. And Pencils of Promise does that very specifically through addressing education equity and access to knowledge for children everywhere. So, in many places in the world, children cannot access high quality education through various reasons. Number one, children in many places in the world don't have adequate facilities to attend school. They may be attending school outdoors. They may be attending school of multiple with multiple ages and multiple age groups in the same classroom. Many children don't have access to some of the other requirements that they need to show up in school healthy and ready to learn, like clean water or adequate hygienic services and education, or adequate facilities and plumbing to use the bathroom. Girls may miss school because they start their periods and they're unable to attend school because they don't have those adequate facilities, or there's a stigma around girls who are menstruating to attend school. And some children experience learning environments where their teachers aren't adequately trained to provide them with the skills that they need in order to matriculate in a way that will help them to achieve their dreams and all of their goals. And so Pencils of Promise addresses all of those things. We build schools, strong infrastructures that last in communities in collaboration with communities that last in communities for decades. We make sure those schools are filled with teachers who understand how to engage with students and address not only their academic competencies, but their socio-emotional needs. So they are engaged and happy when they're in the classroom and they think that learning is fun. And we also address the hygienic needs of children by providing filters for clean water, so children are able to go and fill up their bottles of water and drink water while they're in schools. And oftentimes they bring those bottles of water home in rural areas where people are washing their clothes and their bodies and drinking from the same source. Children are able, and children get sick and adults get sick. Children are able to bring clean water home. They also understand basic hygienic practices like hand washing and things like that, so that they don't contact or contract easily communicable diseases. And we work with our girls and boys to teach menstrual health practices to remove the stigma around menstrual health, which is why we teach our boys. And we also provide resources and tools and education for girls and boys to make their own sustainable menstrual health products, because many girls in communities can't afford disposable products, nor do they have the sanitation to rid of them. So we help little girls and boys create sustainable products so that girls can go to school when they're on their periods and they don't experience the stigma of staying home. So most of our team, we have a team of nearly 200 people. The vast majority of our team are nationals based in country, so that we are able to respond very specifically to the needs that we see within our communities, because that is very, very important to be sustainable as well as effective. So I'm very proud of our team, and I'm really proud to lead Pencils of Promise and help children to achieve their dreams, and help children to remove any barriers that they have to knowledge, because it is their human right.
Kailee, thank you so much for this and for the work that you do. It's so important and far-reaching, and you're mentioning just a number of aspects of impact on kids and kids in their education and kids in their life and their health, and and particularly we take for granted that children will be in school and be in that supportive environment where they have everything they need, and we know that globally that's not the case. And so what steps did you take as you lead this organization to really understand the people you serve and what they go through every day and their experiences, and to use that knowledge and understanding to better create change for them and to advocate for them? What was that process like for you?
That's a really great question. I'm really glad you asked, because I think that is very important when working in global development. That we are really working in a sector that should put itself out of business, right? Our work is really to empower those who have been traditionally overlooked and traditionally under resourced. for various reasons, and to make sure that we support in any way that we possibly can through resources, through bringing new ideas or whatever is necessary to help and support those communities in building out the structures that will help them in the way that they need to define what support and success looks like. So for me, it is always incredibly important, and for my team, to really center the needs of what happens in the countries in which we the countries where we provide support. It is very important to amplify those voices and stay very, very connected. As I said, at POP in particular, the vast majority of our team members are nationals, are reflective of the children that we serve, come from rural environments, had dreams of becoming who they are, their fully self-actualized selves, or have family members who are from these rural areas. And so it is deeply ingrained in our team members to center the needs of those um, who are being supported by the work that we do. We stay very much connected to our teachers, to our students, to our parents, to our community leaders, because the work is, our work is simply the support work. But the real work and the real impact happens to people. And me personally, I firmly believe that every human being is connected, and we are all placed on this earth in the position that we're in through the randomness of our birth. We don't deserve to be among the richest or the poorest. It just is what it is. And as a result, I believe that each of us have a responsibility to our brothers and sisters, because we are all connected. We are all one and part of the heartbeat of the earth. So thinking about making sure that the needs and voices from the communities that we support are amplified is easy, because that's all that there is. That is the voices that we hear, and that's the way I lead at Pencil Promise and anywhere else I've ever been.
And Kailee, on that note, I mean, talking about the voices of our community being amplified, which yes, and I agree. I mean, the roles that you and I play, it's these servant leaders to better serve and support in our communities and create change. And you were also the managing director of the Black Lives Matter Global Network, and did amazing work there. And in context to especially what you just said about, amplifying the voices of our community, the voices of Black Lives Matter movement are so important, and yet it feels as if the amplification of those voices, which through media and through workplaces and conversations, is maybe not as strong as it was. And how do we create sustained noise and sustained impact around these issues that still need to change, that still need progress, that still need work to be done? And I would love your perspective on that. And maybe I'm not listening hard enough, and so this perspective is or incorrect one. But I feel that for a long time this was so central to the conversations we're having, and how do we continue to keep it central every day, to be top of mind about how we best serve those who need us, how we best create systemic change, how we best collectively work together to make that happen, and not let those conversations stop.
Yeah, important question, and important perspective to bring up. Um, I believe that in history we witness a series of big moments, right? In history, we've witnessed big moments that feel like sea changes, like suddenly all the dust has been kicked up and now the change will come. And we remember these, and we sense these, and we remember, we keep these inside, and we carry that into our muscle memory. And then when those moments pass, we feel, the 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 lack of that big resounding boom, and that noise, and we feel like nothing's moving anymore because that moment has passed. But I implore us to remember that change starts within. change is within our individual selves. And if the most recent moments have taught us nothing, it really taught us that we are the change that we want to be, to quote other remarkable leaders in history. That it is really up to us, each and every one of us, to understand our role in our society, to understand our individual role in how institutional and systemic racism has created disparate outcomes for people all over this planet. It is to understand our position, and it is to commit to changing ourselves and making sure that our voices and our commitment and our impact and what we choose and can do to change the way the world works resonates. And in that way, it won't go away, because it is us who continues to make that noise. And very specifically, I mean that for everyone, right? So for those who have been historically marginalized and oppressed, we must continue to use our voices to remind ourselves and others that we matter and we're important and we deserve to not just survive, but thrive. And advocate for ourselves and call out when things are unfair, and commit to doing what we can do on a daily basis to teach our children, to teach our peers, to influence others, to recognize that fact. And it is also relevant to those who are the descendants of those of privilege and in the dominant culture, to recognize what they know that may have contributed and what they've learned. And what they may be doing that contributes to systemic and institutional and individual racism. And in many times, that may mean to step back and to give others a platform. At other times, it may be to re-educate oneself, to acknowledge some of the lessons that they have been taught, and to dismantle those biases, be aware of the biases that they bring into day-to-day interactions, and to overwrite those very purposefully. And so the noise can never go away if you make it a priority within yourself, and commit on a daily basis to making sure that you are either advocating and stepping up, or stepping back and amplifying others and rewriting the messages that you were given. So it takes a commitment to deep reflection, and to deep individualized work, in order to affect institutional and systemic change.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for that, and for the work that you do, and certainly, much more work that I need to do, and that all of us, all of our listeners, can be doing every day. How do we better support your efforts, Kailee, and ensure that you have the resources you need to continue doing the important work that you do?
Well, first, I would advise everyone to visit Pencils of Promise at pencilofpromise.org if you are interested in education equity, because I do believe the work, as I said, the throughway to my work is equity. And the work of Pencils of Promise is providing educational opportunities for children everywhere. And so if you're interested in that work, please visit pencilpromise.org, follow our social channels like everyone always says, and keep an eye out for many of the activities that we are doing. People are able to build schools with us. You'd be surprised as to how accessible that is, and how many people choose to either build schools in honor of their family members, or to convene groups of people who are able to build schools. You're also able to help support our teachers and devise training programs. You're able to provide elements of a classroom. We're looking to expand our hygienic services and our menstrual health services to schools that we've already built, and new schools that need those services. And so really helping us to do that, and that's one area to support the work. The other area is to really become aware of the importance and the impact of primary education, in particular on the lives in each and every one of us, and to support teachers and students and children and families and parents in all areas of the world and in all walks of life, because it is really the foundational element of creating the people who will transform the world, who will make the great changes that we need and will sustain us as human beings. So I implore everyone who's listening to think of their place in all of that and to reach out to us at any time and to learn more.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. It has been a true honor to spend some time with you and to learn and be inspired by you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
All right, Maricella, did you like that interview? It's pretty spectacular.
She's pretty spectacular. She's done a lot of really great things in her journey. I know she was very involved with, she was a managing director, I think, of Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the impact that woman alone has had is pretty impressive. So I'm very, very inspired.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And we have so many other women that inspire us every day. We always love to highlight the firsts, women who are breaking barriers and those glass ceilings. Herrera became the first woman to captain a fishing research ship in India.
Brianna DeSantis is on track to become the first woman to complete the American Discovery Trail while hiking solo.
Wow, that is amazing.
Brianna, can you tell us how it goes?
I would be so scared. Priscilla Coronado became the first Latina president of the Harvard Law Review. Woohoo!
That's so exciting. Radwa Helmi became the first woman to sit on the bench of Egypt's State Council, a top court in the country.
Amber Ray became Knoxville Utility Board's first female line worker.
PG Deepamal became the first woman ambulance driver in the state of Kerala, India.
And Sabrine Dari will become the first woman weightlifter to compete in an international competition for Palestine.
And you know what? Megan Oliver is going to be the first guest on an outro for our Ellevate podcast.
Yes, hello, I'm Megan. My name's Megan Oliver.
As we're celebrating our 300th episodes, I just wanted to mention and thank Megan for all the work that she's done in the last more than a year to bring the podcast to its life and glory. So thank you, Megan.
Oh, thank you.
What is your favorite? What has been your favorite?
Oh my gosh, I literally love all of them. Mina Malik was really good. Hers was amazing, her whole story. Catherine, actually, our other podcast producer, emailed me when she got hers and was like, okay, I love her.
She's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. I loved Karen Lee, but literally, they're all so different and they're all so fun. And I love listening to them. I really liked Kristen Shaughnessy too. She was really recent. Yeah.
You interviewed her yesterday, Kristy.
I did for Ellevate's International Women's Day discussion. We talked to former New York One broadcasters who famously sued the parent company, Charter Communications, and won the lawsuit, but are effectively muzzled due to NDAs, so cannot talk about it. But they're big advocates for reversing ageism in the workplace, sexual discrimination, for representation of women in media, and for breaking these barriers that so many of us have faced in the workplace and in the world, and using their platform and experience to create change.
Yeah, it was a great event. It was amazing. And so, as Megan was saying, Kristen Shaughnessy was on the podcast, and please listen to that. She's great. She's fantastic. Megan, for those of you who don't know, which is probably everyone, when I told Megan that she was going to be working on our podcast, she ran away. She did not want to do it. She was a little scared. So this is how and look what she's done. I mean, you hear it, you listen to it every week, and it's because of people actually believing in themselves and doing the thing. So thank you.
And also management believing in their employees. That's a very important thing to do. Is I never thought that I could have run a podcast literally in my entire life, but this has been an amazing experience and is genuinely one of the highlights of all the things I do at Ellevate. I do a lot of things behind the scenes at Ellevate, but it is one of my favorite things. And I cannot thank Maricella enough for thinking of me when she was like, who Who's going to be our next go-to person here?
Maricella.
Aw. No, I'm glad. And you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Megan, for all you do to make this podcast a success and to help amplify the voices and stories of women throughout the world as we aim to change the narrative and change the reality for many of us, to create more allyship, to create more equity, to create more change and equality. And this is part of it. So thank you, Megan, for being part of that. All right. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for celebrating 300 episodes with us. We still have at least another 300 in us. So we do. So stick around, come back every week. And next week, we'll have a great conversation with Zanelli Najafa, who is known by her clients as the Unlearning Lady. She's an international transitions facilitator and future of work speaker, helping companies navigate organizational changes and step confidently into the new world of work.
You are going to absolutely love her. Well, she was one of my guests at the Rising Leader Roundtables a few weeks ago, and she was fantastic.
All right. Well, come back next week, and we'll hear from Zanelli.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.